Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Nous allons commencer.
Hello to everyone. We will
Merci d'être
start.
ici avec nous
Thank you
aujourd'hui.
for being here with us today.
Mon nom est Romina Acosta.
I'm
Je suis
Romina
conseillère en
Acosta.
communication chez le
I'm
développement et
advisor in
paix Caritas
communication
Canada.
at Development and
Et
Peace
j'ai le
Caritas
plaisir d'être
Canada, and
votre animatrice pour ce
it
webinaire
is my
en
pleasure to be
remplacement de
your
ma collègue
host for
Dominique
the
Godbout, qui est
webinar, replacing
malheureusement
Dominique
malade
Godbout,
aujourd'hui.
who
On lui
unfortunately is
souhaite
sick
bien sûr
today.
un prompt
Of course,
rétablissement.
we wish her well,
Je
to
vous
get
souhaite
well
la bienvenue
soon.
à notre
So
webinaire
welcome
Crise de
to
la faim,
our webinar,
situations et
Crisis of
solutions,
Hunger,
organisé par Développement et paix
Solutions
Caritas
organized
Canada
by
en
Development and
collaboration
Peace
avec la Banque canadienne de guerre.
Caritas Canada
Quelques
with
détails
the
techniques
Canadian
avant de
Foodgrains. A
commencer.
few technical
L'interprétation vers
details
le
before
français et
starting.
l'anglais est
Interpretation to
disponible.
French
Vous
and
n'avez qu'à
English is
cliquer sur les
available.
symboles du
You just
monde
have
ou
to
sur les
clip
trois petits
on the
points en bas de
globe
votre
or
écran
the three
et
little dots at the
choisir
bottom
votre
of your
langue.
screen and to choose your language.
Interpretation into French and English is available. Simply click on the glove icon or the three dots at the bottom of your screen and select your language. Si vous avez des questions pendant le webinaire, n'hésitez pas à les écrire
If you
dans
have any
l'onglet
questions,
Q&A au bas
please
de l'écran.
don't
Nous y
hesitate to
reviendrons un
write
peu
them
plus
in the
tard.
Q&A at the bottom
Et
of the
à la
screen.
fin de
We'll
la
come back to
rencontre,
your
lorsque vous
questions
quitterez
then. And at
Zoom,
the end
un
of the
court
meeting,
sondage d'appréciation
once you
apparaîtra.
will be leaving Zoom,
Merci de
a
prendre un
brief
moment pour le
survey
remplir.
will
Vos
appear.
commentaires nous aident à
We'd
améliorer
like you to invite you
nos
to
prochaines
fill that
webinaires.
survey out
Et
because
maintenant,
it's going to be very
je suis
helpful
ravie
for
de
our
vous
next
présenter notre
meeting. So I'm
modératrice
very
pour aujourd'hui,
happy
Vanessa
to
Pike,
introduce Vanessa
qui
Pike, our
guidera la discussion.
moderator today. She will be
Vanessa
guiding our
a une
discussions.
dizaine d'années
Vanessa
d'expérience dans la
has
promotion de la
dozens of
sécurité
years
alimentaire
of
et
experience in the
nutritionnelle mondiale
promotion of
dans divers
nutrition
contextes
worldwide in various
internationaux,
international
notamment
contexts,
en Haïti,
in
en
Haiti,
Colombie,
in
au
Colombia,
Kenya, en
in
Tanzanie,
Kenya, in
au
Tanzania,
Malawi
in
et au
Malawi,
Bangladesh.
and in
Elle
Bangladesh.
occupe actuellement les postes de
Currently,
conseillère
she
technique pour les
is a
programmes
technical
d'urgence
advisor for
nutritionnelle, d'aide
emergency
alimentaire et
nutrition
d'agriculture de la Banque canadienne de graines. Elle
programs
est
of the
diététicienne
Canadian
agréée spécialisée dans
Grain
la
Bank,
santé
and she's
maternelle et
specialized in
infantile et
maternal
titulaire d'une
and
maîtrise en nutrition
children's
et santé publique.
health.
Bienvenue Vanessa, la
Welcome,
parole est à
Vanessa.
toi.
You have the floor.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here with you all. Good to see people signing on. And we will get started as soon as I have this in order. Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. Glad to have you all here. You can see our agenda on the slide. Today, we're going to shed some light on one of the world's most pervasive challenges, hunger and malnutrition. Both are deep injustices we work tirelessly to end. I'll start by painting a picture of the current landscape of these issues and remind us about the power of our work to address them. The highlight, though, of this session, we'll be hearing from two partner staff from Trócaire, Somalia, and Sudan. And then after that, we'll open it up for question and answer. Imagine a child who only eats rice, maybe some vegetables every day, occasionally milk, no fruits, very little meat, especially in the lean season. Perhaps this child also doesn't have consistent access to clean water or a sanitary environment. Maybe healthcare is hard to access because it's far away, or there are rising cases of an infectious disease in his community. These are all factors that severely impact a child's nutrition and health. Later, we'll talk about what this actually looks like and why it can be so dangerous. But for now, think about what this means for this child's physical and mental development, how it hampers his potential, and that of communities and nations. So where are we globally on progress in tackling hunger and malnutrition? Currently in the world, there are two officially declared famines, which is a quite extreme situation in Sudan and Gaza. But hunger is even more widespread. There are up to 720 million people in the world currently experiencing acute food insecurity or hunger. So we can't just focus on those extreme situations. Around the world, hundreds of millions of people live in extreme poverty, surviving on less than $2.15 a day, an amount that's impossible to support a healthy livelihood in any part of the world. If this was your family, you'd be deciding between maybe paying for medicine or food. You might be deciding which of your children gets to eat tonight. You might have to pull all of your children out of school so that they could work and help support living expenses. Hunger is cruel, and it is a basic human right to be able to eat and be nourished. But I want us to think not only about the amount of food or calories available, but also the type and the variety of food, which is often woefully inadequate in populations experiencing food crisis. Child food poverty is a new concept from UNICEF that has drawn attention to this important issue in early childhood. To meet the minimum requirements for healthy growth and development, a child should consume food from at least 5 out of these 8 food groups that you see here every day. And sadly, UNICEF found 1 in 4 children are consuming 2 or less food groups per day, most often grains and breast milk, meaning they're missing out on key nutrients for their growth, development, and immunity. These factors have led to staggering numbers of children suffering from malnutrition. This report it's a cover of a 2025 report called the Global Malnutrition Estimates. And here in red, you can see there are almost 43 million children under the age of 5 currently suffering from wasting, also known as acute malnutrition, meaning they're dangerously low weight for their height. They're thin. And it's the most life-threatening form of malnutrition, and we'll explore what that looks like in a moment. Despite significant progress over the past 2 decades, these estimates reveal that we are still quite far from a world free from malnutrition. And in case you're wondering, the big yellow bar, 150 million, represents the number of children that are suffering from stunting, which is a chronic form of malnutrition that affects their height and their cognitive development. But today we're focusing on acute malnutrition. So where in the world does this problem exist? The map gives you an idea. Last year, 70% of all children under 5 affected by wasting lived in Asia, and more than 1/4 in Africa. This is a really urgent issue, as acute malnutrition is responsible for almost half of all child deaths around the world under the age of 5. And we can't forget to mention that wasting also affects pregnant and breastfeeding women, approximately 11 million globally. And think about it, when a woman is undernourished during her pregnancy or breastfeeding periods, they are more likely to have serious consequences for their children and have complications during pregnancy and birth. So you can see there's an intergenerational effect as well. So why is all this happening when we live in a world that produces more than enough food for everybody? I'll spend a bit of extra time on this slide because the causes can be complex. Nutrition crisis is closely related to the persistently high hunger levels that we talked about earlier, but both of these are increasingly fueled by the factors listed here. First, poverty and inequality. Hunger and poverty go hand in hand. There are many causes of poverty, including historical and ongoing injustices and social inequalities. People living in poverty often have to spend up to 75% of their income on food. Can you imagine trying to budget for a household like that? This makes them vulnerable to hunger, especially in contexts of food price inflation. I know we've seen some of that, a little bit of that here in Canada. And many cut back on the number of meals they eat each day or buy cheaper or less nutritious food. And often, in a lot of countries, there is a lack of social safety nets, so people quickly become vulnerable. Secondly, conflict is the single biggest reason why the number of people facing hunger in the world today has been rising in recent years. It's wars, yes, but it's also civil unrest, political instability, and other violent conflicts which displace people, disrupting their agricultural production and preventing them from providing food for themselves. This can be seen in Sudan, where half of the population is now facing crisis or worse levels of food insecurity, and I believe it was recently declared the largest displacement crisis in the world. Conflict can also hamper the delivery of humanitarian aid, and blockades or destruction of food supplies can cause malnutrition to spike among civilians. Children living in a conflict zone are more than twice as likely to become malnourished than children living in a peaceful setting. Next, the impact of climate disasters. The global nutrition crisis is directly linked to erratic weather events, natural disasters, which can damage critical infrastructure, limiting access to clean water and sanitation. In such cases, diseases can spread rapidly, often among populations whose immune systems are already weakened by malnutrition. Climate change obviously also hampers crop production, livestock rearing, the frequency of pests, and soil health. In rural communities, small-scale farmers often lack information and resources that they need to adapt to these changes and may have no backup plan if their crops fail that season. Countries like Somalia regularly endure consecutive years of severe drought, sometimes followed by flash flooding, destroying food supplies and livelihoods. And lastly, economic challenges. Chronic underfunding remains one of the most critical barriers to tackling global malnutrition. There was slow recovery from the pandemic, ripple effects from the war in Ukraine, and now layered upon that are the recent dramatic funding cuts of aid by the US and other donor countries, which are severely affecting programs around the world, forcing many to shut down completely. And this is happening in communities where this assistance is literally a lifeline. And we've heard many of these stories through Foodgrains Bank network this year from our partners around the world. As you can see in the little graph on the bottom right-hand side, at this point in the year, there's a 72% global deficit in the funds required to adequately respond to the nutrition crisis. Unfortunately, next year, 2026, is predicted to be even worse. And we can see each of these factors playing a role in the countries that we'll hear about today. So thinking back to the little boy we met earlier, who was just able to eat rice and some vegetables every day, let's understand what happens when these conditions worsen. One of the major effects is acute malnutrition, known as wasting. And that usually occurs when a person has not had food of adequate quantity or quality, or they've had frequent or prolonged illnesses. Imagine this boy succumbs to these factors mentioned, becomes malnourished. He might have rapid weight loss. His body likely weakens from a lack of nutrition and becomes vulnerable to other diseases. In fact, children who are wasted are 11 times more likely to die than a healthy child. And here we see a vicious cycle of poverty. Poverty amplifies the risks of and from malnutrition, and malnutrition increases healthcare costs, reduces productivity, and slows economic growth, which itself can perpetuate a cycle of poverty. Okay, but enough of the discouraging statistics. Now let's look at what's being done to help, and this is promising. Wasting is absolutely treatable. The process starts with screening children to understand if they're at risk of wasting, and this is often done using a mid-upper arm circumference tape. You can see there the green and red tape to measure how thin their upper arm is, followed by treatment, either inpatient or outpatient, depending on the need, and provision of high-energy, nutrient-rich foods such as ready-to-use therapeutic food, RUTF, as well as treating underlying infections and providing other supportive care. You can see the little red sachet there. It's an example of RUTF, typically made from peanuts, milk powder, sugar, oil, plus vitamins and minerals, and has demonstrated remarkable effectiveness in combating malnutrition and nursing children back to health. And you'll hear more about that from our guests. So who is Foodgrains Bank and what are we doing to help? Since 1983, we've been devoted to the mission of ending world hunger. And although we're a network of 15 very diverse members with a variety of beliefs and worldviews, there's one thing that we all wholeheartedly agree upon, and that's that every human is made in the image of God, and no one should go hungry. As Christians, we are called to be the hands and feet of Christ, regardless of how challenging that is. And we're doing that now for over 1 million people each year through providing food assistance or cash or vouchers for food, supporting agricultural production and our emergency nutrition programming, which is the focus of today's session. And currently, the Foodgrains Bank is supporting this type of programming in Haiti, Somalia, Sudan, and Malawi. So remember, there is really good news. Nutrition is powerful. Did you know, according to the World Bank, every $1 invested in nutrition brings a $23 return? That's transformational. And in contrast to the child in the first picture, imagine a world where every child is well nourished, getting the nutrients and care they need to grow as they should, fight infection, focus in school, and develop to their full potential. But if they do fall into a bout of acute malnutrition, they have a nearby clinic to turn to with skills, compassionate practitioners ready to support their caregivers in nourishing them back to full health in just a matter of weeks or months. The work we do is not just feeding people. It's not just helping them recover from malnutrition. It's building healthier futures. And as Canadians, we can play a meaningful role in this, reducing suffering, saving lives, and upholding human dignity. So let's keep sharing, growing, learning, and making an impact. And to find out more about how Foodgrains Bank is supporting partner members like Development and Peace and other partners like Trócaire, you can visit our website. Thank you. And now it's my privilege to be able to introduce our first speaker.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maalim. I'm head of programs for Trócaire, Somalia. So next slide. Next, sorry. So let me begin by just locating our work for you, because sometimes places that don't dominate the news can feel a bit distant, and I want this to feel real. So we are currently working in Somalia, which is at the Horn of Africa, bordering Kenya and Ethiopia. And Somalia has a population of around 19 million people. So within Somalia, Trócaire Somalia is implementing in Gedo region, south central of Somalia, where it is home to roughly 500 to 700,000 people, and more people are in the rural and underserved districts. So what that means is that we are working far away from the capital city of Somalia, in a region where services are scarce and also access is a bit difficult, and the people we serve are among the most vulnerable. So when I talk about our reach for Somalia people, supporting through almost 28 health facilities and having more than 400 healthcare workers, most of them being community health workers, it's not in a major city. It's out here in Gedo, where many people go days without a clinic visit, and many children are at risk of malnutrition and even diseases. So next. So when we talk about hunger in Somalia, it is not a distant statistics. It is a mother holding a child, praying that they survive just for another day. So right now, about 3.4 million people in Somalia are in crisis. And out of this, over 624,000 are on the brink of emergency. And out of these 3.4 million people, 1.8 million children under 5 years are acutely malnourished, and 421,000 children are severely malnourished. This means their lives are just hanging by a thread. And the projection also shows that by the end of this year, almost 4.4 million people in Somalia could face crisis levels of hunger. When we look at this picture on this slide, it's a little girl, very fragile and also exhausted. She's one of our she's in one of our stabilization centers supported by Canadian Foodgrains Bank through Development and Peace, because without treatment, children like the one here in the picture can deteriorate in days. So malnutrition also robs a child of more than just food. It also steals their health, it steals their ability to learn, and also their potential to grow and thrive. And when families loses their livelihood, when they are forced into desperate coping strategies like selling the last goat or skipping meals, the cycle of hunger continues over and over. And this is same stories for millions of people in Somalia. And okay, thank you. Okay, so when we talk about hunger in Somalia, it's not because communities don't work hard or they don't care much. It is because families are constantly being hit by forces far beyond their control. When you look at this picture of this woman, you see a mother standing in dirty flood water, carrying the last pieces of firewood she could have saved. Behind her, the remains of shelters and crops are all now underwater. And this is what climate change looks like in Somalia. Droughts that continue to wipe out harvest, followed again by floods that, destroy whatever crops that have survived, conflict and insecurity, which forces families to flee every time, leaving their farms, leaving their livestock, and also leaving all their livelihood behind. The other thing is the chronic poverty, which means there's no savings for Somali families to rebuild, not even a small buffer for them. There is also challenges in terms of poor water and sanitation practices and also availability of amenities for wash, which lead to sickness, and also when a sick child becomes exposed to all these waterborne diseases, they are highly likely to be exposed to acute malnutrition. And the other thing is the weak infrastructures within Somalia. Both the health systems, the social services are too far away in cases of many emergencies that are within Somalia. So hunger here is not a single event. It is a series of hardships that compound each other over and over again, pushing families deeper into crisis. And so for the mother, like the one in this photo, every flood takes more than just possession. It takes her security, it takes her dignity, and sometimes also it takes a child's chance at life. Next slide. So what are these effects on the communities and also the systems within Somalia? So when a crisis like hunger becomes widespread, it doesn't only affect an individual or families. It places tremendous strains on the entire communities and particularly the health systems. If you look at this photo here, this is an outreach mobile clinic in Dolo district in Gedo. And you can see the number of mothers that are here and the number versus the number of the healthcare worker within this mobile clinic. Every mother here has arrived because her child needs medical and nutrition support, and there are many more on the way. For health workers as well here, this means treating dozens of children who are seriously ill or have come for follow-up treatment within the nutrition facilities. And the facility itself, as you can see, is quite under-equipped as well as understaffed. So for families, it means that long waits and difficult journeys to just make it to this makeshift mobile clinic, and often while a child's condition has already deteriorated. So this strain is also very costly, and not just in terms of money, but also in terms of the human potential and also human cost, because a malnourished child is more likely to struggle in school, more likely to fall sick over and over, and less likely to even reach the full potential that they are able to survive. To survive. And when these children fall behind, families also fall behind, and ultimately the economy as well falls behind. And when systems are also stretched beyond capacity, for the limit of their capacity, fragility also increases. So making these communities even more vulnerable to the next shock, whether it is drought, whether it is floods, whether it is conflict, or even outbreak of diseases. So in places like this in Somalia, hunger just becomes more than a temporary emergency, and it becomes a cycle that continues to weaken future generation, because malnutrition generally just steals a lot within the communities, their strengths, their ability to, thrive, for children to learn, and also the future potential of both the children and also the community at large in Somalia. Next slide, please. So and this is where now the Canadian support comes in terms of saving lives through development and peace. The Canadian Foodgrains Banks have been very, very generous to the people of Somalia. Their support comes long way since 2017. And through the support of Canadian Foodgrains Banks, we've been able to reach over 156,000 children directly since 2017. And also we've been able to see the prevalence of acute malnutrition going down by the years, especially among children and pregnant and lactating mothers. And also we've been able to detect early cases of children with malnutrition, and this is because we've been able to train mothers, grandmothers, and caretakers of these under 5 children just to screen their children and seek help promptly and timely before their nutritional status deteriorate. And also we've been able to provide children with the accurate treatment for malnutrition and the recovery, because we've seen within our program, our recovery rates for the children is standards 98% cure rate. And also when it comes to defaulter rates and death rates, we've been able to maintain it below 1%, meaning families continue to stay in care and also children continue to thrive. We've been able to manage due to the generous support of CFGB through the procurement of nutrition supplies. We've managed to have zero stockout at our nutrition sites, whereby when a child arrives for help in our nutrition sites, we have what they need. And also the other thing is in terms of a strong multi-sectoral referral networks, which are driven basically by an incredible team of community health workers as well. So in total, we've been able to be supported by CFGB to a tune of more than 10 millions. And also we've been able to procure over 1,156 metric tanks in terms of supplies. So how does CFGB support our nutrition services? So the Canadian support is the backbone of our nutrition program in Gedo, Somalia. And with their partnership, we've been able to operate 28 nutrition sites across 4 districts. We've also been able to provide life-saving treatment for severely malnourished children, and also just ensure consistent supply of therapeutic food and essential medicine. And also the mothers that come with their children to be admitted at our stabilization center, we've been able to offer them meals because they are the main providers back home, and they cannot, we have to provide something for them to be able to continue to stay in the stabilization center until they get better and get discharged. The other thing is we've been able to provide emergency transport to transport to the mothers that wants to bring the children to our facilities, so that they are able to get timely referrals, especially for children that have severe cases of malnutrition with medical complication. And also the support go beyond the children. We've also been able to support and capacity build our healthcare staff so that they are able to deliver high impact quality care for these children that come to our nutrition facilities. So when a mother walks into a stabilization center, we know that this child is going to get the right appropriate care, both in terms of the healthcare as well as the supplies. So what are the impacts that have already been made in terms of this support from the Canadians? We've been able to reach over 156 people directly, and also we've been able to improve the early diagnosis of acute malnutrition by 27%. And as I've already spoke before, we've been able to have success rate in terms of our cure rate at 98%, and also defaulter rate at 1% and death rate at 1%. We've also have a very strong multi-sectoral referral mechanism done by a robust team of our community health workers. Next slide. So the support from CFGB goes beyond our nutrition program. So we've been able to link back to our resilience program, because hunger does not just end when treatment ends. So when a child recovers from malnutrition, they have to return back home. But if that home still has no food, no income, and no stability, the child can become malnourished again, and the cycle continues. So they are going to keep relapsing back and being admitted to our stabilization center. So when we bring in the resilience program, this is a nutrition sensitive intervention, whereby we are linking these mothers of the children that have been discharged from our nutrition program to the resilience program, so that we mitigate the cases of relapses within the program. So by supporting these women to just start small businesses and also restore their livelihoods, we are ensuring that there is food at home tomorrow, and as well as the day after tomorrow. So because a food secure household is the cornerstone of preventing child malnutrition, and when mothers and families have income, children also get to eat and also thrive at the end of it. Next. So some of the impacts that we've seen integrating our resilience into nutrition programming is because a child recovery doesn't end just at the clinic. We want to ensure that the home that they are going back to is food secure. So we've been able to support these mothers by just training them, and most of the targets is the women from the internally displaced persons camps, because these are mostly very vulnerable households, and also women-led household. So as at now, we've been able to support to train 40 IDP women who have now graduated with the right skills and also tools, just to run their own small businesses, and also just to ensure that they have some form of income to be able to feed their children. And also we've been able to train farmers, both women and men, in agroecological practices, just to allow them to have the right skills and expertise in trying to grow their foods, and also how to understand how to cope, especially in harsh climate condition that is within Somalia. We've also been able to train also producers and farmers on just things to do with seed production, as well as availability, the quality, as well as the storage of these seeds, and also marketing for local seeds varieties. We've also been able to support through Cash for Works. We've been able to support 10 irrigation canals by rehabilitating it, and also helping them to just grow their helping food grow all the year round, while supporting the most vulnerable households within the areas that we're implementing. So this isn't just helping families survive within the program. It's also just helping them build long-term food security, so that their children also stay healthy and also avert cases of malnutrition. Next slide. So what have we learned so far from years of implementing our nutrition programming through the support of CFGB and DNP? We've learned that nutrition and resilience must go hand in hand. When we strengthen the households, at the same time we treat malnutrition, the results are always extremely powerful. We've seen reduced relapse and defaulter rates, and this is because when caregivers receive, meals when they're admitted to our facilities, or even multi-purpose cash assistance in terms of cash, they're able to stay by their child's bedside, and also until recovery, and also ensuring that the treatment is also completed. The multi-purpose cash assistance is a complementary grant that we are integrating from another program, but working closely with what we're implementing within CFGB. So you can see the complementarity, just to ensure that we have fewer relapses and defaulters. The other thing is greater accountability and trust from the community, because we see mothers are now returning empty sachets of therapeutic food during follow-up visits. This is because we came to realize that when we give mothers these therapeutic foods, they go back maybe to their villages, their houses that do not have anything to feed. So they tend to share this therapeutic food with other family members. So you come to see that the therapeutic food that is supposed to go to this particular child is not being optimized fully by this particular child. So we've been able to just ensure that there's greater accountability. We've ensured that the mothers, when they're coming back for the follow-up visit, they're bringing back the empty sachet, just to ensure that these precious supplies are used exactly as intended for the children. The other thing is in terms of the client satisfaction survey, we've been able to see community have deeply trust us. So we do normally do client satisfaction surveys, and the last round reported that 98% of the clients were satisfied with our programming. And this means that families have confidence in the care that we provide and are also motivated to seek services early before their child's condition becomes life-threatening. I think I've spoke about the lessons learned. So next slide. Okay, so the barriers, even with all the progress that we've made within our programming, there are still major barriers that continue to challenge us while trying to provide these key essential services for the children. First, and perhaps the most important, is in terms of the funding cuts. Until very recently, half of Somalia humanitarian landscape, especially health and nutrition, was funded by the US government. And now these resources have significantly reduced. The top image reflects how much decisions that are made very far away from Somalia or even Sudan affect how care should be given to a child, or even affecting a mother that is coming to our clinic with a malnourished child. So when major donors scale back, the consequences are normally immediate, and also children and vulnerable population are most hard hit. Then we have the other challenges in terms of insecurity and conflict that continue to restrict humanitarian access, forcing us at times to delay or even divert life-saving services for staff safety. The other issues is in terms of flooding and, red networks and seasonal flooding that continues to make it very hard for us to continue reaching communities that are especially very far to reach. If you look at the bottom picture, that is our health staff member wading through floods and trying to carry nutrition supplies above his head so that they are not destroyed. So we also face a lot of challenges in terms of shortages of trained staff, especially the health workers who are trying to provide services in most of these 28 nutrition sites, because many professionals continue to leave for safer places as well as better opportunities elsewhere. And the other thing is population displacement, because the displacement continue to tear families apart, especially the children away from care. So a child may start treatment in one district, and then when there's displacement, they cannot finish because of this displacement, and they are forced to flee to another district. So these are some of the challenges in addition to cultural belief in Somalia. There's a lot of culture in terms of feeding practices, especially for breastfeeding. So why does the Canadian aid matters? It really matters deeply for us because when you look at these photos, it becomes very clear that the support is not just an abstract thing. It is visible, and also it is something which is very tangible, and also it is life-saving. So the first photo, you can see mothers sitting just by the bedside of their children in our stabilization centers. These are some of the sickest child in our region, and there are children who are fighting multiple infection coupled by malnutrition. So if these beds are empty, it means that a child didn't survive long enough to reach us. And if they are full, it also means that the child is getting another chance at life. And also the other side to it is when it is full, it also shows that the malnutrition rates outside is on the high. So the other picture, you can also see a crowded nutrition site. This is an outpatient therapeutic program site. So every mother that has walked a long distance with a baby who is malnourished, they become, it becomes like a cycle, but they come because they trust the services that we provide and the services that the Canadians help to sustain. So in a nutshell, I can just say it's a lifeline for the most vulnerable. The support becomes a lifeline for the most vulnerable in Somalia, especially in places that are hard to reach and also where the world does not see. It is also a steady hand amid global funding cuts. When other major donors step back, Canada stands firm. And also with this support, we continue to protect the hard-won gains, ensuring that children who recover do not fall back into hunger, and also just investing in resilience rather than, dependency, because now integrating the nutrition and resilience aspect of it helps families to rebuild, and most importantly, to rebuild with dignity. The other thing is in terms of principled humanitarian action, which is basically guided by compassion as well as fairness and solidarity from the people of Canada, and also climate resilience and nutrition sensitive programming, which basically means we have to adapt to the realities of the communities, the realities that communities continue to face, particularly in Somalia. And lastly, this is global solidarity in terms of creating local change, whereby we are trying to not leave any child behind, no matter the distance. So the Canadian support tells these mothers that you are not forgotten. When donors cut back the funding, it reaffirms for them that you still matter, their children matter, and that there is still hope, and there is something that this is something that every child deserves. Next slide. So when this is my final slide, and maybe just to give a brief information about this picture, these are some of our community health workers who are the heartbeat for our programming in Somalia. You can see they are laughing with a mother whose child once arrived in our facility very weak, but the child was able to be treated and now is thriving. So these are women who continue to walk miles and miles to reach these families in remote settlements. They are also the ones who detect very early these children with malnutrition and referring them to our nutrition facilities in a timely manner so that they can get the care that is needed. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for standing with Somalia, for choosing to save lives in Somalia, as well as for just believing in a world where hunger does not decide a child's future. Thank you so much, and that's it on my end.
Thank you very much, Europe. Great to hear from some of the details happening in Somalia. I'd like to read your bio. I found it, apologies. Europe Maalim has more than a decade of experience as a health and international development practitioner with leading international NGOs. As the head of programs for Trócaire Somalia, she leads the design and implementation of integrated multi-sectoral initiatives in health, nutrition, water and sanitation and hygiene, protection and livelihoods. She has a master's in international health and tropical medicine from the University of Oxford, a master's in project planning and management, and a bachelor's in development studies. Thanks again, Europe. And now we get the pleasure of hearing from Mary Wamuyu. From her home base in Nairobi, Kenya, Mary heads one of Trócaire's most complex operations as a country director for Trócaire Sudan. Under her leadership, Trócaire's scope in Sudan has expanded significantly, reaching nearly 700,000 people in 2024, with interventions in health, nutrition, water, sanitation, hygiene, protection, and peace building. The doting mother of 2 children, Mary has a bachelor's degree in food, nutrition, and dietetics, and has further training in monitoring and evaluation, health protection, and leadership. Welcome, Mary, over to you.
Thank you, Vanessa, and it's a pleasure to be here today to represent Trócaire Sudan and showcase some of the work that we are doing in Trócaire Sudan. And part of it, it's because of the support that you're getting from Canadian aid. Trócaire works in Sudan, and presence in Sudan dates back to 2011. And this is a photo of just a typical village depicting the kind of life in the communities that we serve. What I would say from my experience in Sudan is that the Sudanese people are very hardworking, resilient people, despite all the challenges that they've gone through their lives. They never give up. And when you talk to them, most of the time they'll say that all they want is for us to teach them how to fish and not to give them the fish. Their desire is to become self-reliant. And as you can see from this picture, it's a very productive land. And communities, when they have the opportunity, will do everything to make sure that they are growing enough food to feed themselves. Next. In terms of the context, as you all know, we may not know, but currently, as Vanessa said, Sudan is currently the fastest and the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world, resulting from the conflict that started in April 2023. We are talking of 30.4 million people in need of assistance, different assistance, be it health, food, protection services, among others. And this is a third of the population of, that is 2/3 of the population of Sudan. 12.8 million people have already been displaced. This represents around 15% of the global displacement. 4 million have gone out of the country, but 10 million or 8 to 10 million are still displaced within the country. We've seen an increase in outbreaks, including cholera. So far, we've treated 87,000 cases with almost 2,500 deaths reported. And 70% of the health facilities in the region are no longer functional, either because they've been destroyed by bombs, they've been looted, or they're not accessible due to the conflict going on in Sudan. As you can see the map on the side, the middle part represents the areas that we work in, and the red parts already represent the areas that are already in active conflict, just coming closer to where we work in. And the yellow parts are areas that probably we could access before, but because of the conflict, we are not able to serve those particular communities. While the areas we work in have not been actively impacted by the war has now been coming closer to us, and every day we are asking ourselves how long we'll be able to access the communities that we serve. Next. Just to say a bit about Sudan. Sudan is it's the third largest country in Africa, with a population of around 49 million people. And Sudan works Trócaire Sudan works in 2 of the 18 states within the region. That is in South Kordofan and Blue Nile. And operations are exclusive in areas which have been under the SPLM North control. We call them the 2 areas, or rather the liberated areas. And these are among the most marginalized communities within the region. And just to talk a bit about the history of Sudan, Sudan is a country that has been in civil war for the last 3 decades. And this has been as a result of the people from the southern side trying to fight for their rights, fighting for their identity against being Arabized by the Sudan regime. And the people of South Kordofan and Blue Nile, or rather the SPLM North-controlled areas, who are on the southern side of Sudan, were left out when South Sudan and Sudan was split. These people fought with the people from South Sudan, trying to liberate themselves from Arabization. But because these areas are very rich in resources, particularly fertile lands, gold, and unexploited oil, the government of Sudan did not allow them to participate in that in that decision, or rather in the referendum that managed to split Sudan and South Sudan. So after the split, the people of the Nuba Mountains, or the SPLM North-controlled areas, continued to fight with the government. And the government of Sudan was very keen on trying to kindly destroy them and, just completely kill them. And we saw between 2015 and 2011 and 26, between 2016 and 2019, there was a lot of bombing in the region, trying to destroy a whole population. And what the government used is something we call genocide by attrition, bombing the communities and destroying and pushing them from the fertile lands so that they could die of starvation. Next slide. As you can see, these are typical, like in 2016, you're talking of 2019, as early as late as 2016. These are communities that were driven from their lands, from their homes, and ended up living in caves. They were prevented from farming, their lands were destroyed, and these people mostly survived on herbs, wild fruits, and leaves. This was in 2016. After 2019, when Omar Bashir, president, was ousted, there was a fragile peace in the region, and there were hopes of a new era where people would have freedom, where they would continue to build their lives. And for a very short period, 2019 and 2022, we saw a lot of communities trying to rebuild their lives. But now with the conflict that again has started in 2023, it's just a matter of time, and probably we'll see people going back to this kind of life. But we are hoping that the conflict will end. But unfortunately, there's no much hope for that ending soon. And because the international community is supporting with arms, we have countries supporting the Sudan conflict with arms. And so they are continually sustaining the war, and we've just seen it becoming more sophisticated, currently using drones to bomb areas and long-range missiles. Next. As we are talking about the remoteness in the area, it's one of the areas you're not also seeing so many humanitarian actors coming in due to the remoteness of the region. And most of this also doesn't make it so attractive to many donors because it's very expensive, or the operations in the area are very expensive. As you can see, this is a kind of typical life that you'd expect. Sometimes this is us going into the region, myself and some of my colleagues. This is the best accommodation that you'll get. This is one of the best accommodations we usually get at the border. When you go for field monitoring visits, sometimes you just have to sleep outside. During the rainy season, movement becomes very challenging. And generally, our staff are usually accommodated by partners, and that's the best that you can get. This is an area where we don't have roads, we don't have internet or any mobile connectivity. So for you to even communicate to the beneficiaries or the communities, you just have to make sure that you're going to them. And more so, we don't have any public transport. So majority of the communities will walk days to get access to health facilities or any other kind of service. Next. In terms of our work in Nuba Mountains, we look at 3 key objectives that we are trying to achieve. One is to save lives, and we do this by ensuring that we are responding to the needs, the immediate needs of people depending on the crises that come about. Number 2, we are trying to meet the basic needs of the communities that have been deprived of even the very most basic services like healthcare, access to seeds, farm inputs, and just to say that this is a community during the war that was put under an economic blockade and humanitarian blockade. What that means is that the government of Sudan stopped any humanitarian organizations from coming to provide any interventions in this region. And more so, they blocked all the economic routes that would ensure that the community of Nuba Mountains is getting supplies from other parts of the country. Up to today, we are operating through cross-border from South Sudan. So meaning that if I want to go into this region, I cannot go through Sudan or Khartoum, but I have to go through South Sudan, get to the border, and then drive into the region. And that is usually at least 3 days of travel to get to these communities. So we are trying to make sure that you're meeting the basic needs of these communities, which are mostly food, health services, and water. And we know that these are very much linked to malnutrition. If communities do not have food, that then they lead to malnutrition. If there is no access to healthcare, the diseases, or rather, disease is also a contributing factor to malnutrition. When people don't have access to water, they are most likely going to get diseases related to water hygiene, and that again translates to malnutrition. And lastly, we are also providing resilience programming, and this is through activities around agroecology. We train farmers on agroecology. That is about soil fertility. We are training them on food diversity. We are training them on post-harvest loss management, value addition, and also natural resource management, just to make sure that they're able to provide food, and especially in the context where climate change is becoming more and more a challenge to the communities. We're also working on providing economic empowerment to communities, to families, and this we do through training on business skills and also providing cash to communities, and especially through women groups where we train them on voluntary saving lending, and then we also train them on business skills and provide them with grants. Next. In terms of health and nutrition services, we are supporting, we are providing integrated health and nutrition and immunization services. And this is because, while our major objective is to address malnutrition, we know health diseases are linked to malnutrition, as well as immunization. If children are immunized, then they are more protected from getting diseases, and therefore reduce the risk of malnutrition to these children. So our objectives around providing health interventions include to improve health and nutrition status of the communities, reduce disease and malnutrition related deaths, and also reduce outbreaks and communicable diseases. Through the support from the CFGB program, we are able to support the nutrition program through outreaches and also static health facilities in the region. Next. We are also, while providing health services, we are also ensuring safe and dignified access to these services. And we do this through rehabilitation of the infrastructure, which was mainly destroyed during the conflict, just to make sure that we are also ensuring that we are protecting our beneficiaries. Next. As part of building the capacity, this is one of the areas where we do not have a lot of skills. We are talking of people who are deprived education. We have an entire generation of uneducated people. And we believe that we need to build the capacity of the local community if we are to sustain these services. And so we invest in training local capacities in different aspects. Like we have trained community health workers who support with the nutrition program at the community level. We are training technicians to make sure that they maintain the cold chain within the communities, or rather in the region. And you're also working with existing structures from the de facto government of the SPLM, such as the Secretariat of Health, by equipping them with like motorbikes, and also providing for them incentives so that they're able to monitor activities within the communities. Next. As part of our food security and livelihood programs, we are aiming to improve the household food security, also improving the nutrition status of households, while also augmenting household incomes. One thing to mention about the communities we serve in the Nuba Mountains, they heavily rely on their own production to meet their household food security, or rather food needs, and also for their economic needs, or rather income needs. So what we've been doing is through training and empowering communities around agroecology approaches, we've seen them diversify the kind of food that they're able to grow, and also they have been able to produce enough to meet their needs at times, and also to just have enough to sell, or rather to save seeds for the next season. And probably some of the examples that I can give about the gains that we have made. We have invested a lot on training communities around post-harvest loss management, including training, helping them to improve on their traditional storage facilities so that it can reduce the loss. And what we've seen is communities being motivated to grow more food because now they've been able to reduce the loss after harvest. And like, for example, this year, in one of our projects, we were able to organize seed fairs within the communities, where instead of us buying seeds from outside and bringing them to the communities, our beneficiaries were able to procure seeds within the communities through the seed fairs. So this gave them the opportunity to choose the seeds that they want. It also made sure that the program was timely. The communities were able to get the seeds when they needed them to plant because they were readily available. And this also reduced the cost in terms of our programming, whereby the cost that would have used to buy and transport the seeds from South Sudan was translated to more beneficiaries being able to access more seeds within the community. And also that meant that communities, we also kind of supported the communities in terms of economic empowerment because they were able to sell their seeds and get income from that. Another example, through the voluntary savings and lending groups that we are supporting, we've seen some of the groups embracing the IDPs, the internally displaced people that are coming into the region as a result of the conflict, and sponsoring them, giving them some grants, or not grants, loans, so that they can start some small businesses within the IDP camps, and therefore helping those communities, or rather those IDPs, to become more self-reliant. Next slide. We are also supporting water sanitation and hygiene because, as we mentioned, this is one of the contributing factors of diseases. Acute watery diarrhea is one of the major causes of malnutrition in children. And also, when children are malnourished and then they get watery diarrhea, the risk of death goes higher. So by supporting the activities around water sanitation and hygiene, we are trying to reduce the incidences of diseases. We are also promoting access to safe water in a dignified manner, and also ensuring that communities are able, instead of spending so much time in water points, like 2 hours in the water point and another 1 hour walking, they're able to spend that time doing other things like agriculture. So bringing water closer to the communities, and especially considering that it's women who usually go out to fetch water. Sometimes if they're spending most of their days looking for water, then it means that they have very limited time to even take care of their children and also take care of other household needs. We've seen also women failing to take their children to the clinic who are supposed to be going for malnutrition treatment because probably they had to prioritize getting water. And that has made it one of our priorities to make sure that we are addressing the needs around WASH. Thank you. Next. In terms of emergency response, we do this through provision of cash to multipurpose cash that allows communities and families to access food and other needs, but also through provision of food baskets, which include sorghum, cereals, pulses, oil, and salt. And what we've seen in the region, majority of the IDPs prefer getting the food as compared to the cash. That has come out in most of our post-distribution monitoring surveys. And it's because of access even to the markets. The markets are limited. As I mentioned earlier, there's an economic blockade. So and especially the conflict has even made it more worse to get access to food from the markets. And also protection concerns, being in new areas where there's no proper infrastructure, so they can't even access the markets. They prefer being given food as opposed to getting the cash. We've also been responding to outbreaks. Currently, we are responding to a cholera outbreak in the region, and mostly we've treated more than 3,000 cholera patients with around 117 deaths. And this, again, the risk of death, especially for malnourished children when they get cholera, becomes more challenging. So we are supporting with providing supplies for treatment of cholera, training health workers on how to manage the cholera cases, especially those combined with malnutrition, while at the same time referring cases with who need critical care to other facilities that they may be able to get the support they need. Next slide. With the support from Canadian Foodgrains Bank and Development and Peace, we are able to support the nutrition program. And I would say for many years, we've been struggling with stockouts for the nutrition commodity. And from 2023, I think this is one of the successes I can speak about. From 2024 June, we've not had any stockouts of nutrition therapeutic feeds, and that has made us continue providing the services to the children that really need these services. And in 2024, we were able to treat 4,612 children with severe acute malnutrition and 2,531 pregnant and breastfeeding mothers, as well as providing vitamin A supplementation to actually 41,191 children. For us, vitamin A supplementation becomes a very critical intervention at this time, and especially to provide immunity, to boost the immunity of these children. Overall, since 2023, we've been able to receive 1.2 million Canadian dollars for the nutrition program in the Nuba Mountains. And we've been able to procure 60.47 metric tons of therapeutic foods, and also vitamin A, deworming tablets for children, and folic acid for pregnant and lactating women. This year, with support from Canadian Foodgrains Bank, we are targeting to reach 84,566 individuals, among them 9,000 children with severe acute malnutrition. Next. Some of the key challenges that you're experiencing in the region, we are talking of multiple crises. Currently, we have conflict in the region. We've also seen extreme weather conditions, flooding, and unpredictable patterns of rainfall. And, for a community that relies almost 100% on their own production for food, and they only have one farming season, the rainy season becomes a very important season in the region. And what we are seeing is mostly now the rains are becoming more unpredictable and more erratic. And this is really becoming a challenge for farmers to know exactly when to plant. And we've seen situations where they plant and then the rainy season starts, they plant, and then we have a dry spell and the food is all destroyed after germination. And so the production becomes lesser. The conflict has meant communities are not able to access their farmlands, so they're not able to grow adequate food. We've seen, again, access to farming inputs becoming a challenge because now the markets are not even operational. And also, we are seeing a huge displacement crisis in the region. Nuba Mountains has not been an active conflict zone, but has been a recipient of IDPs. The population in Nuba Mountains has grown by 40%. That means 1.6 million IDPs have come into the region. And this has really led to a kind of a strain on the already very limited resources that have been there in the community. So as a result of all these compounding crises, we're seeing increased malnutrition cases, more families without enough food to feed their families, more outbreaks such as cholera, measles, and we've seen additional crises coming in. We are seeing so many cases of teenage pregnancies resulting from the sexual abuse from the as the communities flee from the conflict zones. We're also seeing child protection concerns, so many children out of school. The IDP children who've come in the region are not able to access education because the curriculum is different. The language of instruction in Nuba is English. They are used to Arabic pattern. We are seeing the funding constraints in the region and less funding as a result of the US aid cuts. But also, when you look at the humanitarian response plan for Nuba, or rather for Sudan, it's only 22% funded. Out of the 45 billion required, we've only gotten 10%. And also we have the access challenges as a result of the conflict and the road. When it rains, some communities get completely cut off from the region. Next. In terms of capacities, we have outstretched capacity. We don't have enough supplies to meet the increasing needs, lack of expertise in the region. We don't have people who are trained to provide health and such services because of the low education rates. You have very few humanitarian actors into the region due to the bureaucratic challenges of accessing the region, and few humanitarian organizations with expertise in this new emerging situations. And then poor infrastructure, even for diagnostic purposes, like you can see a photo there of one of the health facility we are supporting. We lack even the very basic diagnostic equipments to be able to support or rather provide the services. And more so, the facilities, we lack more female health workers. As you can see a photo of one of our trainings, majority of those providing health services are male, yet the people who are mostly coming to access our services and need are women. Next. Why Canadian aid matters to us? For me, what I would say is that the Canadian aid is more than a donation. It's more of a demonstration of the deep solidarity and compassion with the people facing crisis, and in this case, in the people of Sudan. As I mentioned, the people of Sudan are very resilient, very hardworking people, but due to the many compounding impacts of the crisis, they've been weak. Their ability to cope with these challenges have been weakened. And so the support that the Canadian aid is providing is making a difference in saving their lives, but also protecting the dignity of the people in Sudan who are facing conflict, displacement, and hunger. And so on behalf of the people of Sudan, I would like to say thank you. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Mary. That was fascinating. We are going to now move into a time of question and answer. Romina, I think, will explain.
Oui, merci Vanessa, Mary
Yes,
Europe
thank you, Vanessa, Mary Europe, for your very interesting presentation. So, if you have not done so already, it is time to ask your questions. Please use the Q&A box, the one with the question mark at the bottom of your screen. We have the time to take one or two questions. I see there's already one question in the box. We can start with that one. It is in French, so I'll read it. One of the slides presented by Europe Maalim mentions that cultural beliefs influence food choices and practices. Can Europe list some of examples of cultural beliefs that influence food practices? Thanks and appreciation for the testimonials of those who participated in the seminar. So Europe?
I'm sorry, it was not translated in English. Maybe you can ask me in English, please.
Yeah, you one of your slides mentioned that there is the influence of cultural beliefs on
One of
food
your
choices.
slides
So could
mentions
you
that
elaborate?
cultural
Could
beliefs
you
influence
provide
food
an
choices
example?
and practices. Can you list some examples of cultural beliefs that influence food practices?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So in terms of cultural beliefs, maybe let me give an example. So in the Somali context, the caregiving practices is basically done by the mother as well as the grandmother. So in the first instance, when it comes to exclusive breastfeeding, it's not something that is really something which is adopted within the Somali context, because there are other feeding practices in terms of giving these newborn babies, in terms of the culture, something like a small portion of dates and also water mixed with sugar. So some of these things is deeply ingrained within the culture. The other thing is in terms of when a mother falls pregnant while she's still breastfeeding, the culture says that she should not be breastfeeding this baby because the milk is now dirty just because the mother is now pregnant. So these are some of the cultural beliefs as well as the practices that is within the Somali culture. I hope that is clear and I've answered your question.
Je vais prendre l'opportunité de poser une question.
I'll ask a question now.
Ici, dans nos pays occidentaux, on
In
constate
our
une certaine
Western
réticence
countries,
qui
we
croise
see that people are
réticence à la vaccination, méfiance envers la médecine et la
distrust of
science,
vaccination,
des choses comme ça.
science,
Est-ce que vous observez de mêmes
things
choses
like that, and
au Soudan ou en
traditional
Somalie?
medicine? Do you see things like that in Sudan or Somalia?
Europe, we can't hear you. Your mic is off.
Sorry about that. So in terms of vaccine hesitancies within Somalia, which is predominantly driven by also culture, yes, we have some communities where they do not believe in vaccination. They do not believe in conventional medicine. And just to answer in terms of vaccination, it is something which is also, because in the Somali country, there are also non-state actors who are driven by religious, they are more of religious fanatics and also don't believe in vaccination as well as conventional medicines. So we've seen that due to this cultural belief and also some way fanaticism in Islam, they do not believe in vaccination, not only vaccination, also things to do with family planning and all that. So you will find that in some regions, even within some regions, there will be high uptake of vaccination, but within some particular villages, which is encompassing some particular communities with culture as well as religious beliefs, they have really low vaccine uptakes, and we see these are the areas that are always having outbreaks of measles. And we've tried to do a bit of community engagement, because also we are also cognizant of just respecting people's cultures and belief and approaching them in the correct way. And how have we done that? It's just working closely with community structures, being able to amplify and demystify the beliefs that surround uptake of vaccines. And to be honest, if I look back 5 years ago and where we are now, we've seen major changes in terms of these beliefs that surrounds vaccine uptake as well as other conventional medicine, because it's not only vaccine but also conventional medicine that we are providing. Yeah.
On the contrary, in Sudan, I think immunization is one of the most treasured interventions. When you sit with mothers and discuss about their priorities, they will mention immunization for their children. And I think it's because they've seen the devastation that some of these outbreaks have caused in the region. We've had several outbreaks of measles. In particular, I think the one that made us even lobby and introduce immunization services was one that 45,000 children were recorded having measles, and I think we lost around 1,012 children within the Nuba Mountains. So vaccination is something that is really treasured by the mothers and the authorities there. And so we don't really struggle in terms of having to get people get vaccination.
Merci pour vos réponses.
Thank you for your responses. I don't see any other question on the chat.
Votre dernière chance pour poser une
A
question.
last chance to ask a question before we conclude.
OK.
Well, perfect.
Dans ce cas,
In that
je
case,
voudrais remercier
I
nos
would like to
panélistes,
thank our
Mary et
panelists, Mary and
notre
Europe,
modératrice, Vanessa,
and Vanessa, our moderator,
à vous aussi d'avoir pris
and
part à
also
ces
to thank
webinaires sur la
you
crise de la
to
faim.
have participated in this
Et
webinar
avant de
on the
conclure,
hunger
j'aimerais vous
crisis.
inviter à poser
Before
un petit
concluding, I would
geste
like to
qui peut avoir un grand
just
impact.
do something small
Faites
that
un don
might have
pour
a
soutenir nos
big
partenaires
impact.
comme
Make a
Trócaire,
donation to support
qui
our
œuvrent
partners
chaque jour
like
pour lutter contre
Trócaire,
la
who
malnutrition et la
fight
faim
every day
et
to
bâtir la dignité.
fight
Les liens
hunger.
pour faire un don
Now, the
va
link for
apparaître
the
sur les
donations
chats.
will appear
Il
on
vient
the
d'apparaître
chat.
sur les chats.
It actually just
N'hésitez pas à y cliquer
appeared
dès
on the chat.
maintenant.
So please click right now.
Également, s'il vous plaît,
And
prenez
also,
un instant pour remplir notre
please take
pourcentage.
a
Le
brief
lien est
moment
également
to
dans le
fill
chat.
out the survey.
Vos
Which
commentaires
the
nous
link is in
aident à
the chat.
améliorer
Your
nos
comments
prochains
help us
événements et webinaires.
to
Merci
animate
encore à
our
tous et à
webinars,
toutes pour
future
votre
webinars.
présence et
Once
votre
again,
engagement.
thank you for your
Et je vous souhaite une
commitment,
excellente
and I would
après-midi
like to
et
thank
à
you,
très bientôt.
to wish you a wonderful afternoon, and hope to see you soon.